Welcome back to Watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. We heard there from Mr. Dili Alaki about some of the pronouncements of President Bola Tinubu that has to do with tax, especially telecommunication and excess duty, 5% tax, and some other issues there on the finance bill. But we have joining us to elaborate on this, Mr. Ayodiji Ebo, the Managing Director of Optimus by AfriInvest. Thank you so much, Mr. Ebo, for your time this morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us some of the implication of that announcement yesterday. We did see equities surge, but it's been surging, so we cannot say if exactly that announcement had anything to do with it, even though we saw Airtel also, made some positive move after a little bit of some days, But tell us, what are some of the implications of the suspension of excise duty and tax?
Okay, thank you. The first thing we're all aware is that once tax is imposed, it has its cost element. It means that if it's from the company's perspective, it means that the company will be paying more. And if it's also passed to the consumer, it means cost of products will go up and consumers will pay more. So effectively, what these have done is to reduce the burden on businesses. We're all aware that when you look at endless list of taxes, some would say close to about 40, some would say about 50 type of taxes that is being charged on the business, which is a major drag. We all know that the SME drives over 50% of activity in the country. And if those taxes continue, we're already seeing a lot of them winding down because it's going to be like a cost burden. So effectively, what this has done is to give these companies, or give the companies and also consumers a bit of time. We're all aware the prices of the fuel prices have increased, which has also impacted on transportation costs. We've also seen the depreciation of the naira, which would also impact on cost of items. So that in itself is a major burden on companies and on Nigerians. So this is a major sign of relief. For some, the implementation period has also been extended. So it gives companies also to plan, because what actually happened then was it's backdated. So you would see that it would have come as a shock, because if you have done your projection and suddenly there's a cost that you are not aware of, that you now need to commit to, that's really set company back. So I think this is a step in the right direction. And like you mentioned around the market, what drives market is positive sentiment. While this may not be directly linked to the performance we are seeing, it's also riding on those positive sentiment, positive policy moves that we're seeing this government make. And the expectation is that if it's sustained, if it's backed with the necessary moves and policy action, so we'll continue to see that gyration that we're currently seeing in the stock market.
So about the 5% telecommunication tax, I remember when it was introduced, of course we talked about it here and a lot of people were not so happy about it. Now that 5% has been suspended, what can telecommunication users expect?
Okay, thank you. So I think that the implementation has not, I don't think it has kicked in, and it has that percentage has been added to in terms of the cost of calls, or the tariffs, if we put it that way. So currently, what I think to expect is that indirectly is the savings that we implied savings in quotes would also maybe just be channeled to maybe the quality of the services, to improve on the quality of services, the expansion that is being carried out by the telcos. That's what we would expect to see. But we know when you look at the sector where they also operate, the cost of doing business in Nigeria alone is also very high. You have to provide your own power. Most of the PTSs have about 2 gens that are running as one as backup. So you would see that in some countries where you don't need to run on diesel, run on gen, the cost may be lower. So while we understand that, yes, the cost is really very high in terms of running the telcos, that implies savings will also be channeled to see how they can sustain that quality, the expansion that we're also seeing within that space.
And there was also the part that the finance bill has been deferred to September. Could you help us, break that down?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so for the finance bill, most time we've seen in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, it's always been released and it starts with the budget. So it's always to what we've seen the finance bill, what they focus more on is how well you can be able to get more revenue in terms of taxes, adjustment based on effective fiscal policies. So what we're saying effectively has happened is that rather than the effective date for some of those taxes that is contained in the Finance Act to kick off, it has been moved to August. Yeah, so there would still be more time. I think in terms of the passage, in terms of passage and signing of the Finance Act, there were the number of days that is required for especially the tax element, where it was not observed. I think minimum of 90 days based on the national tax policy, so that for companies are able to plan their cash flow, companies are able to see how they want to restructure their businesses in view of that tax. So I don't think companies did not have enough time. So it was like it's like backdated when you want to calculate the tax. So I think this is a positive one, and it gives everyone, companies, businesses, for them to plan ahead of the kickoff date of the Finance Act.
But it doesn't really reduce the burden because, this 2022 finance bill was kind of controversial. Manufacturers, as you mentioned at the beginning of your conversation here, I mean, companies are expected to use about 40–50% of their profit for taxes. And I mean, it's a fragile economy at this time that is we're trying to build. So if they are burdened that much, a lot of people would have expected, maybe some of the taxes will be taken back to the old rates, like the tertiary institution that was increased, And a lot of people did not know when the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, signed it. I think he signed it on the 28th of May. So a lot of people were like, okay, so maybe there are going to be some reduction, to help ease that burden on businesses.
Yeah, I think you have hit the nail on the head. There's a need to still suspend some of those taxes or to review that act, that's the 2022 Finance Act. There's a need to review it because based on the reality in terms of cost of doing business is high. And I think speaking to what one of the main objective or drive of this new government is to reduce multiplicity of tax. So there's a need to also reduce that so that you can be able to benefit from the bigger pie, because once you squeeze those companies now, they don't grow. And at the end of the day, you only continue to enjoy a little part of the pie. But if you give them a bit of tax holiday or reduce the burden on these companies, they grow bigger, they employ more, and even whatever percentage that they are paying, because it's based on the bigger business, would be higher than continue to feed on the smaller business.
Well, we do hope that the president will hear some of this and will act on it to ease the burden on businesses that are supposed to provide employment. Even the non-oil exports we are talking about to get more of the foreign currency, it all falls on these businesses. So we do hope there'll be some changes before then. We can be hopeful. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ayo Dijebo, the Managing Director of Optimus for AfriInvest. Thank you for your time this morning and have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you, and always my pleasure.